Hi everyone, welcome to Sunny Day Discussions. I am Sunny Day. Before I get to the main topic that I wanted to talk about, I want to just list some of the mass shootings that have happened recently, bring it to your attention. And this is just dating back to May 14th. So on the 14th, there were 4 mass shootings. On the 15th, there was 1. 16th, there was 1. 18th, there was 1. On the 20th, there were 4. On the 21st, there were 4. On the 22nd, there was 1. On the 23rd, there was 2. On the 25th, there was 1. And on the 26th, there was 2. So that's 21 mass shootings just in 11 days. So we do have a definite problem in this country about gun violence and mass shootings. And the interesting thing is that out of all of those, there was 21, like I said, 15 were Republican and 6 were Democratic states. So the whole more people with guns makes you safer argument is bunk. Otherwise, we would be the safest nation in the entire world. We wouldn't have to worry about anything, but instead, we have to worry about getting gunned down all the time. So that was all I wanted to say about that. I just wanted to kind of just keep that in the forefront, of people's minds. So we're aware of what's happening in this country in regards to that. Now to the main topic I want to talk about is WTF Florida Part 2. A GOP lawmaker introduced a bill. It was called Senate Bill 1248, titled the Ultimate Cancel Act. And this bill doesn't specifically reference the Democratic Party, but it seeks to, and I quote, immediately cancel the filings of a political party to include its registration and approved status as a political party if the party's platform has previously advocated for or been in support of slavery or involuntary servitude. They're ignoring the fact that the party switched in the 60s. So the Republicans of Lincoln's generation have the ideologies and viewpoints of today's Democrats. But they're just going by title. And so luckily this was dead on arrival. It didn't pass because it would eliminate, in essence, the Democratic Party in Florida. DeSantis has also recently passed laws that would restrict educators from teaching factual accounts of Black American history, of anything basically that's considered unpleasant in our history. And by doing that, you're erasing the memories of that and the learning from that. If you're not teaching about the Holocaust, which he has banned books by regarding Anne Frank and the Holocaust, you're more likely to repeat it. And I'll get into more of that later because I think we're seeing possibly the beginnings of another genocide, but I'll get into that in another video. DeSantis is said to take inspiration from Viktor Orban, and he is the authoritarian fascist dictator of Hungary. Now, in April 2023, Hungary passed a bill encouraging citizens to report same-sex marriages with children to the authorities. That's just, you're destroying families. It's disgusting. It's the authoritarian. It's the government being involved in places they shouldn't. In 2021, Hungary passed legislation that banned the inclusion of LGBTQ plus people in school educational materials. So, can't learn about them. In 2022, Hungary passed a censorship law that prohibited LGBTQ individuals from being featured in educational materials for youth, banned companies from making advertisements that support the LGBTQ community, and if said advertisement or product could be considered to be targeting youth. That sounds pretty familiar as to a lot of the legislation we're seeing trying to be passed in today's America. The ACLU Women's Rights Project and the LGBTQ plus HIV Project has warned that legislation like Hungary's could be coming to the United States, particularly to the red states. Many right-wing, quote, intellectuals consider Orban as a role model, obviously by him speaking at CPAC. Orban's government and the American GOP are part of the same global fascist movement that is spread by the same far-right informational records, mostly based on falsehoods and feelings. The recent anti-democratic attacks in state legislators across the country, such as silencing and ousting political opponents, targeting citizens' bodily autonomy, undermining intellectual freedoms, and limiting minorities' access to public life, are part of the how-to of authoritarian governments. Specifically, the attack on the transgender community, the study of gender studies in school and universities, and LGBTQ rights. It's a tactic used by authoritarian governments to consolidate power and limit free expression. And if you make a common enemy, so if you scare people into believing that this community is out to get them, out to get the children, that makes those people who are susceptible to that fear support a dictator, because of course they convince those people that they're the only one who can save them. But Florida is not the only state that's been toying with fascism. It's kind of become like the prototype, the how-to, if you will, of bringing fascism to the national stage. And with DeSantis now running for president, he's obviously wanting to take Florida policies on the national level. Florida has also been following Hungary in the restriction of free speech. The European Federation of Journalists reports that Hungary has systematically dismantled media independence, freedom, and pluralism, distorted the media market, and divided the journalistic community in the country, achieving an unprecedented degree of media control. DeSantis has not taken that step yet, but there was legislation that would require journalists or bloggers who wanted to write about him to register with the state. And recently there was, well, I don't know how recently, but recently within the last year, there was an Axios reporter who was fired for responding to a DeSantis press release, calling it all propaganda. He was fired for calling it like he saw it. In Hungary, the government forcefully closed independent media organizations, thus silencing any sort of opposition that the media might have towards his policies. And I could definitely see why media in this country is scared of that same thing occurring, because it's well on its way. There is a bill in Florida, House Bill 999, and it's still in debate, hasn't passed. But basically it prohibits state colleges and universities from using funds to promote, support, or maintain any programs or campus activities that espouse diversity, equity, or inclusion, or critical race theory. This would give states' board of governors the ability to remove any major or minor that is based on or otherwise utilizes propaganda methodology associated with critical race theory. And the language in this bill is so vague that there's a lot of people that are concerned that this bill could be used to eliminate things like student unions, Black fraternities and sororities, things like that. It could be used to further isolate and suppress minorities. On March 1st, 2023, the Florida Department of Management, who oversees government facilities, put significant restrictions on free speech on their grounds in Tallahassee, Florida. Basically, it's saying that cops can remove any type of demonstration for any reason. And the DeSantis administration has actually said that they only want demonstrations there that align with their values. Meaning, if you're critical of DeSantis or the Republican Party or any of their policies, chances are you'll be banned from protesting. You know, that's in the Constitution. It's unconstitutional. I don't know how it's okay, but apparently it is in Florida. And in the 2023 session in Florida, there's also a bill called HB 1, Senate Bill 202. And it defunds public schools and transfers billions of dollars from public educational facilities to private. Mostly Christian religious schools, and those schools also have a history of discrimination. So you're, in essence, cutting off education to people who have less money because you can't afford private Christian schools, and not everyone's Christian. Not everyone wants to send their kids to a Christian school. So dumbing down our society, again, is one of the goals, I believe, of Republicans. And so far it's working because one of their main objectives has been to defund public education. And it shows. We're far behind the world in all of our educational institutions. There's also House Bill 991, Senate Bill 1220, and it weakens state laws that have protected journalists from frivolous lawsuits. It would also force journalists to reveal their sources. It's another way of stifling free speech and stifling any sort of criticism that comes from the media. There's House Bill 1533, Senate Bill 1126, and that criminalizes bystanders who are filming first responders, such as police, firefighters, paramedics. It would stop them from being able to film within 30 feet. In essence, that would just kind of basically get rid of any evidence of excessive force or misconduct. Because, you know, police body cams don't always film everything, or they somehow get lost, or data gets corrupted. But if you have an civilian bystander who's filming, then you get the full picture. And yes, there's two sides. We don't always know what happened before, but that's what investigations are for. And the Supreme Court has said that you can film the police. It is your constitutional right, and that everyone in modern era can be considered journalists because as they film and then they post to social media, they are disseminating information to the public, making them a journalist. Then there's House Bill 1197, Senate Bill 1240, and it would basically strip local governments of being able to regulate clean water, clean air, allowing the government, the federal government or the state government, to make regulations or cut regulations regarding clean air and clean water. It puts the Florida's wetlands in danger, all of that. So while Florida is well on its way to fascism, we can't let that spread. And it's spreading already, but it's spreading to predominantly red states. So far, Democratic governors have stood strong. But if Republicans get control of Congress again, we might not be able to stop it. Democrats are so scared of governing that I don't think that they would stand up to these fascists outside of just giving speeches. But they're so scared of taking a risk. They're so scared of being called names, I guess. I know I've said it before, but it's true that they're not effectively governing. And it just makes me believe that most of the members of Congress are not in it for the people. They're in it for the money. Lobbyists, donations, that's what they're in it for. And that's the policies that they make. So anyway, that's the end of this video. Vote. Vote, vote, vote. I will stress it every video. Vote. Like, share, subscribe, and I will see you next time.